Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and I got another Patreon request, this time by WeronikaM, who originally wanted me to do one other movie, but it wasn't on Netflix, Hulu, YouTube. I couldn't find it on a free website, and I didn't own it. So unfortunately, I had to pick a different movie, and they settled on this one, and it was Howl from 2015, which is a film that I had heard of but had never seen. It was a direct-to-video 2015 film from Britain. It was directed by Paul Hyatt, written by Mark Huckerby and Nick Osler. And it stars Ed Spielers, Sean Pertwee, Alfred from Gotham. It was cool to see him. Holly Weston, Shauna McDonald, Elliot Cowan, Duncan Preston. And basically what it is it's a werewolf movie more or less on a train. Not like Train to Busan, but like a group of people on this train. Once they get out to this foresty area, train breaks down and there's werewolves out there. And my opinion of it was it's okay. I have a lot of problems with it, especially the werewolf aspect of it. There's things about the werewolves that I didn't like. The cinematography by Adam Biddle was actually quite well done. I mean, it doesn't say here what the budget was, but I mean, for a direct-to-video film, the cinematography was quite well done. The acting, I think, like what you'll find with a lot of British films, is pretty well done as well. I like the idea of a werewolf movie on a train, and people sort of having to... I mean, there's some parts that was like Jeepers Creepers 2, where it was like, they're kind of stuck on it. Should they try to leave and find a way out and get back on it? Of course, there's, people... always one or two characters that are going to try to... that ends up being like the downfall of the group because of their ideals. I want to look at the production because I want to see. Which actually, the director, Paul Hyatt, was a special effects guy he used to collaborate with film director Neil Marshall. And he had done creature effects for Doomsday, The Descent, which is a film I'll probably be reviewing soon. Centurion and Dog Soldiers. Yes, I do like Dog Soldiers, which is also a werewolf movie. And Shauna McDonald was also in The Descent. Sean Pertwee was in Dog Soldiers. And Paul Hyatt also did the effects for Attack the Block and Woman in Black. And that's really my only problem with this film would be the effects. Because a lot of it is CGI, even with how the werewolves move, because they are bigger, larger than life werewolves, which can be okay. I'm still partial to, like, the Lon Chaney, he's still the same size, he just has hair, fangs, sort of walks a little different, but of course has, strength and stuff like that. But I've never really cared for these huge, like, muscly, sort of werewolves, and even how they move is kind of CGI, especially their mouths, like, it kind of is CGI. Some of the blood effects which I thought was okay because there is some practical gore effects as well. And even just the look, I swear, one of the werewolves, if you take Three Finger from any of the Wrong Turn movies, juice him up on Bane's venom, that's what this one looks like. He's got the same kind of nose and eyes. It just looks like Three Finger juiced up like Bane. That, and they make these weird little like elf noises, like the growls and the roars and the howls sound cool, even though I swear I heard like a tiger or lion roar in there a couple times, like the MGM roar. But other times they make like these little like chirpy, and I don't necessarily mean the part when after the elderly lady's attacked and they're all back on the train and it's kind of whimpering like a dog. I don't mean like that. I actually liked that part. I mean like when a number of them are together and they're all just kind of making these weird little like elfy or like I just thought of like an elf or like a goblin sound. I never associated with werewolves. That and the ending, I didn't really care for the ending. One could argue that while they were in the shade, that's why they were still werewolves, because this takes place over the course of a night and then it ends in early morning. But so one could argue that some of the werewolves were in the shade. I always like to stick as much to folklore as possible, and you know, it's the moon. As soon as the sun comes up, they're done. And I know there's probably going to be, because you know how some people, and it's fine if people think this, whenever a movie comes out that has any kind of question at the end, instead of letting the film digest, they're just like, gotta have a sequel. Gotta know what happens to her. Know what happens to the lady that at the end. But basically, our main character is this guy named Joe, who, well, before I get to that, but there were some things I like how people talk about the werewolves like it's a disease that gets passed through biting. That's sort of a different way to look at it. And I have Wikipedia open here, just to, like I always do, just to kind of help me with plot points that I might have forgot, but whoever typed this out, this plot synopsis out for Wikipedia, I mean, their English and structure is fine, but like this, I swear there's one part where it's like, she is dragged off and is killed even when she begs for mercy. It's like, werewolves don't give a shit about mercy. So I don't think that was really needed to be put there. But our lead is a guy named Joe, played by Ed Spielers, who I'll just see what else he was in. Downtown Abbey, Outlander. He was in 2006 film Aragon, which I haven't seen. I've heard of. Some people might try to say it's a horror film just because there's a fucking dragon in it, but he's a guard on the train, and he's sort of like a put upon kind of guy. Life kind of walks all over him. He's kind of dragging his knuckles because he just completed a shift, then he got put on another red-eye train, and he finds a promotion, a letter that's rejecting his promotion. At one point, he asked this other train guard or stewardess, if they're called that, played by Holly Weston. He asks her out, and she pretty much totally blows him off. So he's this really put upon kind of guy who eventually grows to become our hero. And we see our group of characters. We have this elderly couple, We have this one guy named Adrian. We have this young girl who's just a pain in the ass. I get the idea she's like a teenager because she's sitting there talking on the phone. Joe is trying to check her ticket. She's just ignoring him. Other times she's smoking and ignoring Joe when he says you can't smoke. Then other times she's like sitting there with her phone like this, like singing along to whatever song it is out loud with people sitting around. It was fun when she got killed. Eventually the train breaks down. They're out in the woods. At one point, the conductor, played by Sean Pertwee, who again, I really like his Alfred in Gotham. He's a badass. It's one of the stories where Alfred, former military, trained. He's a badass. Kind of like Earth 1 Batman. He goes out to see what it could be. He's killed. And I like how for a while we don't really get a good look at it. I almost would have preferred, and I would prefer, a werewolf movie where we don't get to see what it looks like. Because I do like mystery. I do like things to be left to the imagination. And, that's one reason why I love the original Blair Witch Project. Because we don't see anything. Anything you would have shown would have looked stupid, like in the 2016 film. I mean, we catch small glimpses. Like, we'll see its legs, or at one point we'll see, like, its hand scratching along the side of the train. That's fine. He's attacked. And then eventually, the group decides, why don't we get off the train, go on foot, try to find the nearest whatever. Joe thinks he's going to lose his job, but he agrees. So they start walking. He kind of goes off a little farther than everyone else. Finds dead Sean Pertwee, all gut, and I mean, practical effects, intestines and guts. It looks good. Plus, the cinematography works. I like how the nighttime shots look. It's got this nice sort of bluish hue, like under the moon. It has sort of I don't want to say natural lighting, but it very well could. I thought the cinematography worked. It feels like there's a budget there at least. So that's when he tells the Holly Preston character, who I believe her name was Kate. Ellen. It says Joe's girlfriend, but, start of the film they're not. Tells her to get everyone back on the train, so and then they hear howls. It kind of reminds me of Silver Bullet, when all the hunters go out to try to find the killer before they realize it's a werewolf. It kind of reminded me of that scene. So then they're all running back to the train. Of course, they got to get the door open. The elderly couple is a little slow. They get him on, and then when they try to get her on, the door is shutting as her leg is being pulled in. And we get the idea she's being bit. And I like how it, kind of like Jaws, how it keeps pulling her around and, pulls her up the door, then down the door, and up. And so she did look kind of stiff, going up and down. But I thought it was a neat idea. I like the effect on her leg, this big open, gushing. I liked the look of the effect. And then, of course, I'll try and debate. Was it a bear? Was it a dog? It was too big. And they realize that the fuel lines have been destroyed and the antenna has been broken off. So they're pretty much stuck there. This one younger guy, I guess, is like an engineer. I guess he's going to try to fix it. And from there, the werewolf just finds ways to get in. I mean, this one guy he kills in the bathroom. He gets into the bathroom somehow. And then that annoying girl gets, crashes through the window, grabs her, pulls her out. And it's like every time someone gets killed, there's like blood gushing everywhere. Because like when the guy's in the bathroom, you see like these like claw marks like denting out from the door. And there's holes, so blood sprays out through there. Some of the blood is CGI, but if the rest of the effects are practical and look good, I can forgive it. I just don't really like the CGI on the werewolves themselves. And I'm not going to get into every single plot point, but more and more people are killed off. Eventually, the werewolf is on the train, and they all gang up and kill it. One guy stabs it in the eye, another one's hitting it with a wrench or stabbing it with that. Joe kills it with a fire extinguisher to the head and like bashes its skull in. And then, the old woman that got bit is starting to act a little sick, so that's when they're like... And one guy remembers back in the 60s, there was a train that broke down in the same spot. And all the passengers were found partially eaten and dead the next day. So now, I don't think it's like someone's probably going to say like a Jeepers Creepers cycle every so many years. Don't think that's the case, but eventually this one guy, Adrian, he like puts himself over everyone else, and he what was it he tried to do? Oh, he tries to strangle the older woman because she's turning into one of them, so he tries to strangle her. And so then Joe is like, tie him and her up in the other room. And then we find out there's a bunch of werewolves. And, I mean, people getting killed off. And, I do like the idea of there being like a pack of them. But I didn't really care. The biggest thing is the look of them. That if they looked more... Hell, if they were just got like people in suits like Silver Bullet or like the Howling or even original Universal Wolfman, I think they would have looked a lot better than these big hulking CGI werewolves. I mean, a lot of the face and everything is practical, but the mouth movements is CGI. Eventually, we're left with this guy, Adrian, Joe, and the girl, Ellen. And, of course, Joe and Adrian are fighting because, Adrian's only looking out for himself, and he even makes it so he'll leave people behind to get eaten so he can save himself. But, Joe and Ellen get away. He tells her to keep running. He'll hold him off. And I kind of disagree with how this is worded with whoever edited this on Wikipedia. Because some of them gather around him. And he tries to fend him off. And then one grabs and bites him on the neck. The camera pans back and it almost looks like they're like hugging him or holding him. So the way it's worded is like apparently killing him. But it looks more, while the other ones are standing there watching. And so it definitely looks, you can tell what's going on. It's like, okay, they're turning him into one. Because if they were just going to eat him, or apparently killing him like it says, they would have just gathered around and started chowing on him. She does get away. She shows up at the nearest station. covered in blood. She looks down at her hand. She's holding Joe's name tag. And I know people will be like, we need a sequel. We need to know what happens to her. It's like, probably nothing. She probably gets cleaned up. Nobody believes her, and she goes on with her life. You know, if a movie ends with some ambiguity, we don't need a sequel to it. You know, it's fun to kind of let our own, either leave things open-ended or let ourselves fill in the blanks. And then we see Adrian out in the woods. He finds a path. He finds Joe's bloody jacket, and he starts to call out his name. And by this time it's morning. The sun is up. And so he looks around and he sees some of the werewolves like peering out from the trees, looking at him, doing their weird little elf noises. That doesn't make sense. And yes, you can argue that they're in the shade, so the sun hasn't hit them yet, but you know, look back to American Werewolf in London. He's sitting there reading a book, and when the moon comes up, he doesn't see it. The moonlight doesn't hit him. It's just up, and that's when he starts turning. Figure the same thing would happen with the sun. The sunlight doesn't have to hit them. Then he looks over and he sees Joe, and yeah, the mouth and the eyes are CGI. He is more half and half looking. If they had just looked like that the whole movie, I probably would have liked it more. I buy that more as a werewolf than I do the other ones that we saw. Because to me, when I hear werewolf, that's exactly what I think. Like half and half. I don't just think of a wolf that just walks more or less upright and can use its arms like arms. You know, I think of, a half and half man wolf. And yeah, he's not that big or intimidating, but you give him speed and ferocity. And we get the, it's implied that he's killed, and then the movie ends. I would say I liked everything about this movie except for some of the stuff they did with the werewolves. Like some of the look, some of the CGI, being out in sunlight at the end. If that was improved, this very well could have been one of my top werewolf movies. And I know when I say that, one of my top in internet keyboard language, that means it's my number one, better than anything, because people don't listen. I mean, I would definitely put Wolfman, the original, over this. Definitely American Werewolf in London. It's always been a tie between those two for me for the best. I would put The Howling over this. Curse of the Werewolf by Hammer put over this. Silver Bullet. Yeah, quite a few I'd still put over it, but I still I enjoyed the movie, and my favorite parts were like the first few kills when we didn't really see the werewolf. I liked that more than I liked what we got. That was more so the biggest thing for me. But I could say it wasn't that bad of a movie. I mean, it was all right. I mean, it's cool. It was requested so I could check it out. But WeronikaM, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope I didn't shit on this movie too much. I mean, she said she likes my no-nonsense approach, and I gotta be honest. This wasn't one of my favorite werewolf films. In fact, it's not one I'll probably remember too well. In fact, and this is gonna sound harsh, some of the scenes with the look of the werewolves kind of made me think of both American Werewolf in Paris and to an extent even Twilight. I know Twilight, they just look like giant wolves. But, you know, the CGI, not that tiny bit made me think of Twilight. The actual look made me think of American Werewolf in Paris, which is a movie I do not like at all. But I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it was worth it. And yeah, Howl from 2015, I could say it was okay. At best, it was okay. I enjoyed just as much as I disliked, I guess. But anyway, thank you for watching.